welcome to Reality After Show coverage of the Challenge Season 40. Man, it feels like we're on episode 40, but it is only episode 16. I'm your host, Dan Montchal, joined, as always, the boys are back this week. Alex Trias, Paulie Calafiore. Alex, Paulie, we were talking about the length of the season coming onto it, but I guess where do you want to start? First thoughts of last night's episode.
I mean, the episode was an episode. Let's just be frank. The episodes are very long in the tooth right now. It was great episode if you're Derek. Like, you finally get to have some chance to have some exposure. I think it's cool to shed light on his family. I'm sure he wishes they showed other stuff about him throughout the entire season instead of just using his sister for their coverage. Outside of that, it's like, let's just get to the final. Let's just get there.
I just think it's crazy that, like, when you say we're on episode 16, like, usually the shows are done.
Yeah.
Like, usually episode 16 is, like, the finale, and, like, maybe that's the reunion. That's all magnesium. That's not even water.
No.
Man.
But what he's saying is so real, though. Like, look at Survivor. Survivor historically is, like, 13 episodes.
Glass of water also. Yeah. Thank you.
13 episodes, and then, even then, people are like, oh, let's just get to the end. Let's just get to the end. It's like, we have short attention spans. So you increase the time to 90 minutes, and then you continue to have, like, 18 to 20-something episodes. Like, this isn't a sitcom. Like, this isn't some, like, episodic television that, like, you're trying to go week to week. This is reality TV. Like, just, if you could bring this down to 12 episodes, have some purges along the way, like, change the format a little bit of how they broke down how you sent people out, double eliminations, whatever. Like, it could have happened.
If you're gonna have 20 episode seasons, why not kind of do the streaming service, like, tactic of, like, hey, we're gonna drop 2 this week, you know what I mean? And then it's like, you have 10 weeks worth of runtime, or you could, like, start with, like, 2 a week and then just, fizzle it out to, like, 1 a week. I don't know. Like, I'm just, it seems like this is such a monumental season. I feel like there could be me, but it feels like there's no storylines.
The storylines are done.
It feels like the only storyline, which, once again, I think it was even brief. Like, if we really think about it, it only really lasted 3 or 4 episodes. Was, like, the storyline of, like, the house divided, Bananas Angels versus, Michelle and Tori, Cara, and Olivia, right? Where is the storylines? Like, once again, like, Derek has been having somewhat of a phenomenal season.
You wouldn't know it.
Social game, exactly. Social game wise, then he has his moment with the daily, then he has this moment with the elimination. He is going into the final kind of like getting hot, right?
Yeah.
There has been no highlighting of Derek's social game all season long. Right? There's been no highlighting of him as a competitor all season long. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's an attention span thing with the fans or whatnot, but it's crazy to me. Like, there's been no storylines that have taken hold and taken root of anything. Like, am I crazy in thinking that?
No.
It doesn't feel like storyline. Like, I feel like when you go back and you talk about certain seasons, you're able to actually imagine what the storylines for those seasons were.
The past 4 to 6 weeks, the only storylines we've had has been, if you're going back to 6 weeks, would be the Bananas and Tori of it all, and Footgate. That's all we've had for 4 to 6 weeks, which is insane when it's 90-minute episodes We know more has to be going on, and I just don't get what they're not showing us, because there has to be better stuff out there. I mean, you go back to Derek. I know, Alex, you made this point a few weeks ago, but just to bring it up again, that they're not having a good way of highlighting how good of a game Derek is playing. They have to throw in the confessionals of other people, the Bananas, the Jordans, saying, oh, look at Derek, like he's a dark horse. He's doing really well. And while that can be great to get it from, two legends of the game, you're telling me that somewhere in the past 3 to 4 weeks, you couldn't give us a 3-minute like Derek montage of just showing the work he's been putting in socially in this game, something just to highlight it so we can actually see it instead of
like
be
the
told
conversations he's having
right?
Yeah,
how he gets involved in strategy, like all of these things. A lot of things are not really making sense. It's like, Tori and Cara are working together. Like, we're just not going to touch on that all season.
Right.
We're not touching on all season how two people, the last time they played together, were on opposite ends, hated each other. Now, all of a sudden, they're just working together. Like, there's no conversation about that. Like, we get a little bit as to why Rachel's working with Jonny. We don't even get at all why Aviv's working with Jonny, other than Footgate. We already understand why Jenny's working with Jonny because of previous seasons that they've done together. Like, even Kyland and Michelle, like, working together. Like, literally just last season, they were on opposite ends of the show and of the house, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's been, if you're just watching this for the first time, I feel like you're confused. And if you're not watching this for the first time, there's so many questions out there, like, how the fuck did this happen? How did we get here? Like, I understand 100% giving people, like, their moments of, like, who they are, but I feel like the way the show had always kind of been is the show tells the story of the players that they want to tell the stories, but they sew in the overarching storyline of the season with the main people that they know are making it deep in the game. It almost seems like this season has been edited in the sense of, like, all right, these people are going home at this point in time. These people are going home at this point in time. So we got to kind of, like, give them their moment here. And then all these people who make it to the end will kind of, like, start telling their story, like, now. You know what I mean? Like, whereas, why is Derek so well protected? Why has nobody talked about it all season? Right? Why is Jordan so well protected? Why is nobody talking about it? Like, all right, yeah, we have talked about it. Like, well,
yeah,
he's banged most of the strong women in the game, and he's a beast, right? So everybody wants to do that, but why is he so protected also by, like, the men's side of things? Like, why hasn't anybody that's been working not with Jordan been able to get in anybody's ear to be like, no, make him a target?
Right. And you were talking about it before we went on, before we started the podcast, but it was like a lot of people just mishandling the format of the game. Like, the first half of this game where it was team oriented, yes, everyone knows that you're going to break off into something that's more individual at some point, and that maybe at the final you're going to be paired up with other people, so you want strong people around. However, I feel like people are thinking too far ahead at times, and they need to play the game that's in front of them at the moment. And in the moment when you're in teams, the object is to make all the other teams weaker. And instead, everyone was like, oh, but could someone just volunteer for me? And then the teams would just bully the worst players more times than not to nominate themselves, leaving people like Jordan available to be safe time and time again until he's like, oh, I can be paired with a strong woman also, and then no one's going to want to touch me. It's like, it was just a lot of people mishandling that. And then when you have people on a platter, they're like, yeah, but one of my people won't say yes to this, so I'm just going to fold. As in Laurel.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like there's been no arguments in the deliberations other than Tony and Avery.
Yeah. And there really should have been more.
From a decision standpoint.
Yeah.
There was only one time that people were so split that they were like, we're sticking to our guns and going in.
Not only should there have been more, but we have episodes like this week where we've kept the targets for way too long that we don't even have a deliberation. Like this, I don't know. I think that could have made the episode a little bit more enjoyable, is if you at least had the deliberation, because it wasn't just, oh, Cory's going in. You make Tori make the decision. Are you going to throw him bananas? That's just going to at least create some good TV, because the two of them are going to go back and forth. Is she going to listen to maybe what Jordan wants to do a little bit more and throw in a Kyland, something like that, to try to get him out where she has to backstab someone? Like, they're just taking opportunities off the table where we could have had drama these past 8 weeks, but because of the targets, there's been none. And this is the third or fourth episode where we haven't even had a deliberation, because it was, all right, one of the targets won, one of them lost.
Yeah.
You get who you get. And
I feel like they put themselves in a bad spot, because, like, if it was up to me and you're sort of just like, screw if they know when the final's happening or not. Like, they all know when the final's happening. Like, we're not dumb at this point. The formula's the formula. Like, it's going to be when there's 4 guys, 4 girls. At 5, the rules should have just been, like, there was no target. It was, you win and everyone else is available.
I would even argue that when it was 6 and 6 and 7v7, take the targets off, or like do a deliberation where the people who win have to select the targets from the house and then make a decision. Or like, you know, here's last place, here's the people we're nominating as targets, and, you know, then you get to the deliberation and you throw it in. Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like once the teams were done, there's no longer that dynamic. Like, for instance, you know, last night, you know, you got Cara talking shit about Rachel a little bit, Rachel talking shit about Cara a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to know what would be hilarious is if those girls were allowed to target each other.
Yeah.
Shit about each other, right?
Yep.
If the guys are talking shit about why, you know, we can't get Jordan out, well, yeah, you can't get Jordan out because all the women want him protecting them when it's their turn. So, like, why are the guys not allowed to go after each other and target each other? And, like, now here we are in essentially the last male elimination of the season where, you know, Jordan wins, Kyland and Bananas are there, but they didn't come in last place. Derek came in last place. Cory automatically goes against him because of the target matchup, where I guarantee you
Bananas would have went in. Most likely. Yeah.
Or Kyland, because Kyland was, you know.
Well, I only say Bananas would have went in because Tori was the one who won. And at that point, there's no incentive for her to put Kyland in.
Yeah, well, I mean, but if she's working with Jordan, right, and Jordan's like, hey, I kind of feel good about going against Bananas in a final. Derek and Kyland seem to be the guys who are on my tail here. I'd rather put them against each other and have one of them go home.
You know what? You actually brought up a good point that I want to bring, because it is from the beginning of the episode when Cory's talking about his competition. Because he's giving, like, all the players their flowers of the guys remaining. But then when he gets to Bananas, the only thing he says is, well, I beat him in USA 2 in the final. Ignoring the fact that it was, like, that weird, like, thing in that, like, it, like, one of the last steps in the final where, like, you either got an RV or you had to run out doing something random. So, ignoring that, there seems to be something along those lines of, even though, like, Bananas stays in, like, really good shape for his age, like, people aren't as scared to be in a final against him as they were in the past.
I agree. I mean, you know, here's the thing. He's good at making it to the end. I still think, listen, no matter what, if you put like a Bananas or a CT in a final, there's always a chance that they could win, depending on what the final is, right? Because they've been to enough of them where there's just certain things that are consistent with finals that they already know how to figure out. Right? Whether it's a strategy thing, a puzzle thing, a math thing, an untangling thing. They've seen it enough where, you could be in great shape and you could be smarter than them, but they've just been there enough times. It's like, even the worst Patriots team still was going to win the Super Bowl because they had Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the whole Patriots team who, when they get to the playoffs and when they get to the Super Bowl, they've just been there so many times. They don't make the mistakes that other people make. So I do understand that, but yes, looking at it from people who were there, we're no longer looking at Bananas as like that guy. Like if I was on a season, I would feel very comfortable going to a final with Bananas, whereas when I first was on the show, I wasn't. I was like, no, fuck this guy. He's the best. I don't want to let him see a final because then he'll win.
He'll win.
You know what I mean? But like now it's like, I mean, listen, he still makes it to the end. So it's extremely impressive that he's made how many finals out of the last season he did? He made the final of Ride or Dies, made the finals of USA 2, made the I think
this is his 12th final, potentially.
Yeah.
But he's made the last 3 in a row that he's done.
Yeah.
Actually 4, right? Because he took a hiatus. So, like, the last 4 times he's been on, he's made a final. He's made a final Total Madness and won. Ride or Dies and lost. Came in, second?
Second.
Second in Ride or
Dies. Third
Dies.
on USA. We'll see how the rest of this season plays out, but I can't imagine him coming in last. You know what I mean? Like, so he's still there. And, like, with the way he trains and, now he's doing NAD treatments and glutathione and cold plunging and stuff, like, he is showing no indication of, like, letting off of the gas before winning his 8th one.
Right. The one that will just, like, silence everyone and be like, look, I won when I was younger. I won in my prime. I need that one now that it's like everyone thinks I'm over the hill. Win this one, and then maybe he's like, now I can take a step back. But knowing Bananas, he'll just be like, well, now I want to go for my 9th.
He's never taken a step back. And the thing is, he'll still, even if he gets that 8th win, he'll still go into a season and be like, why are people targeting me?
Yeah,
of course. That's
look. I am just an elderly man. You can't target me.
Bro, if you're gonna do it the CT route. Like CT comes in heavy. So when he's sitting there being like, man, I don't want to fucking be, I'm fucking like, just, like I'll fucking jump on a grenade. Like I'm just like here, but like, look at me, look at you. Like you could sit there and be like, yeah, all right. Like I know better because of what he did on War of the Worlds 2. But, like, to a new person that's in here, they're going to look at him and be like, ain't no way he could beat me in a final. And then as the season goes on, this dude just, like, loses 100 pounds and is all of a sudden ready to, like, just smoke everybody in a final. You know what I mean?
Well, I thought one of the most entertaining parts is going back to where you brought it up, Alex, is Cory talking. He's giving one flowers. But it's just the most typical Cory thing ever of in the very last second being like, oh shit, I don't want to go against Jordan. It's just like, Cory, this is
remember when you
plan.
Remember when you could just like force Tori's hand to be like, I'm just gonna go down there if you don't agree to put Jordan in. Like you had that option. Avery showed it. Avery had more stones than you. Avery went down and won.
And that's the thing is, Cory probably had a chance of beating Leroy.
Yeah. Leroy. Yeah.
In the balls in and Tori and Nia would have been a good matchup. Would have been a very good matchup.
It would have been interesting for sure.
I know. I think he should have stalemated. I also think Horacio should have stalemated. But
there's a lot of people that should have stalemated early on that could have changed up the game. Absolutely. But speaking of Cory, because it's something that we brought up about Jordan. And Kyland brings it up too, like during the episode about like just when you go into elimination a ton during the same season. Like Kyland went in 5 times during 39. We always talk about like just keep setting Jordan in because eventually you're gonna find the matchup or the comp that he just won't be able to bring it that day. And that's what we had this episode with Cory because like the first 3 eliminations that he had the luck of all of them essentially being his wheelhouse. All of them strength-based, athleticism-based, something that goes into his background growing up. And then you go into this one where, despite him declaring himself a new puzzle king, required a lot more brains than the actual endurance and the muscle. And that's why Derek just had like what felt like, just in comparison, a masterclass of how to do the elimination. Because like Derek was even smart enough to like just do the first full half that was facing the opposite way to just ensure that Cory is still just confused out of his mind.
Yeah.
Like, it was impressive on Derek's part, but also like just like it goes with what we're saying of the theory works of if you send someone in enough times, they are going to slip up. It's rare for anyone to actually get to the final having faced 4+ eliminations.
And also, when you factor in the other aspect of it that weighs on Cory that maybe isn't weighing on Derek right now, because Derek never really had the opportunity to make it deep in the game, right? All-Stars 4 was his first time making it deep. Now this is his second time making it deep. There's really no pressure on his shoulders from the fans to do better than he's already done. Cory, on the other hand, a lot of pressure. You know,
yeah.
People say he's the best to never win. You know, either he doesn't make the final or he makes the final and loses. So here he is right before a final. All of that is weighing on him. And like, you know, the other aspect of things that weigh on him is, okay, I've gotten eliminations that have been better suited to my wheelhouse. When eventually is the one going to pop up that's not? And this was it, right? So like, if he was more of a well-rounded challenger, then he's like, all right, here's another elimination. I'm winning. Like, he would have had the same confidence going into this one that he did, like, when he was going against Josh. Basically being like, hey, man, like, we're not friends before this, and I'm going to beat you and send you home.
Right.
But there was a lot more respect because, once again, he's seeing how everybody's doing on these daily challenges. So, like, a lot of pressure on him for that. And it got to him because I think if he was a little bit more methodical, he would have maybe copied Derek's strategy.
Yeah, it's something that was there. I just had a laugh when he said the newfound puzzle master. It's like, Cory, a few weeks ago you were calling for Nelson's help on a puzzle. Like, that doesn't tell you everything you need to know. And it's just as soon as they brought up and saw what it was, I was at least glad that they made it pretty evident from early on that this was a masterclass by Derek. Because there's nothing that they could have showed me to try to trick us with the edit. Because as soon as you saw what it was, I was like, oh, Cory's going to lose this. He has no shot.
No, they were using the same footage multiple times of none of his center blocks being moved the entirety of the elimination. Like, they were all in that still same position of just like, I just don't know where to move it. Is the 40 on the bottom or on the top? He did not know. But look, he is a puzzle master. He did a 3x3 slide puzzle, you know? That means something.
I don't know what parenting is like and everything, but I know for damn sure if I was doing puzzles with my children and solving math problems with my children, I would know how to do every single puzzle that exists in the world because I'd be trying to like get my kids to be just as smart or not smarter or smarter than me. And it's like, it's like having the wherewithal when you're in the moment to just look behind you and be like, wait a second, this guy seems to be strategically moving things around before he goes and gets other puzzle pieces. I wonder why he's doing that. Like, there was none of that. There was none of like, oh, wait, maybe he's solving the puzzle as he goes. So instead of me just taking all of these pieces and putting them on a platform, which is going to make it harder for me to solve this, let me at least solve the things that I know exist, which would be the number 40 and the word, the challenge.
Yeah.
It's not like, dude, like, it's not like the puzzle I had to solve in the final War of the Worlds 2, where it's like this triangle with these balls that are attached and there's only one way that it fits and you got to figure it out. It's not like the 3D cubes like on War of the Worlds 1 where like, you're stacking that shit up and you got to figure out the pockets. If we're talking about the puzzles this season, they've been relatively easy compared to every other season of the challenge that has ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I also think they thought that Bananas was going to lose because of the time penalty. I think they thought he was going to lose, and this is why they made the elimination what it was as their last other moment for him to have like a redemption arc because of Ryder dies, because they lose because of that type of elimination, where Jonny put in cinder blocks in the wrong spot, but then kept building, and then by the time that they built it and got it checked, they didn't know where it was wrong. Yeah. So they had to like tear it all down. So it's like he made like a little comment about it. I'm fairly confident they thought he was going to lose this one and be down in the sand as a one last thing to be like, well, now I hurdled this last thing that cost me the final. So now I'm all engines ready to go to this one. Whatever.
I think he would beat Cory in that. The thing is, it's like, would Tori and Jordan throw down Derek or throw down Cory?
Right. So I think if it was up to, and that's the thing, if it was up to Jordan, he would have thrown in Derek. As he said, because he's like, I want to go to the final with Cory. He's been to the final 5 times. He's never won. I would love to go to the final with him. But I think if it was up to Tori, and I think it's more so a case of showing Cory's bad social game this season, was he thought Tori would protect him, and I think she would have liked to. But you see too many more scenes of her being very more personable with Derek, where like Cory just sort of does his thing in the house and isn't around people. So I'm like, at a certain point, like, are you really gonna protect this guy? Like, what has Cory really done for you outside just like not make you a target, which is like just showing that you're playing a good game?
Well, if the producers thought that Bananas was going to lose this, I question the producers there, because I'm with where you were at, Paulie. When I saw what it was, there were 2 things that were going to be certain on the guy's side. Bananas wasn't going to come in last because 30 seconds wasn't long enough because he's an above average swimmer. The other thing that was a guarantee when he saw how long the swim was, all right, well, Jordan's going to win. Those were the 2 certainties coming into it on the men's side.
Right. Because really it all comes down to, it should have really all just came down to the swim. Because yes, it was a puzzle. But really, what's really a puzzle if the only thing you can really do is plug and play with all of them? You had 12 things, you had to keep plugging each one until you got a light. Like, it wasn't like it was this insane puzzle. So the only way you do bad is if you're not managing all the wires. Well, they were calling it a puzzle. I'm not calling it that.
I guess everything's a puzzle nowadays.
I mean, look, when the math has to be left to right and not how you actually do math, like, we have to call it what it is sometimes.
Everything is a puzzle now, Paulie. That's how Cory's now a puzzle master. He's mastered the basic ones.
That's true.
That's true. Everything is a puzzle now.
But, like, if you're watching someone do this 500 meters, because, like, 500 meters it's not a small thing. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand, like,
Olympic sized pool is 50 meters.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not this small thing, because I think some people were looking at some of the people swimming and be like, how are they gassing out so fast? Like, 1, you're not seeing the full swim. 2, like, the whole thing is like, if you're not a swimmer, like, as in swimming daily, once you get through the first 50 meters, your arms are feeling it. Your legs are feeling it. Like, your lungs feel like they're going to explode. And then you have to do it 9 times that. It's like...
Yeah, and the thing is, most people they don't have, like, the mind to calculate 500 meters. So it's like, if you're a good swimmer, you could go as fast as you want for 100 meters. And then if you start getting tired, you'd still be able to push it through 200 meters if you're a good swimmer.
Right.
But a good swimmer also knows once they say 500 meters, you are not coming out of the gate hot. Like, you're just going to keep a steady pace where once you get past the 250 meter mark, you then, whatever you have left in the tank, you're going to gas it for the end. And I think they're watching people who, as soon as they hit the water, shot out as fast as possible. And, like, you do that, you're dead by 150 meters.
Yeah.
And for the other 350.
Right. And it's not like you're swimming in a pool. Like, you're swimming in open water with you're in open water with a current. You have like the vests on and everything. That I always think that also brings some hindrance to it, because most people don't swim with that. Like, you swim free body, it's a lot easier than swimming with more clothes on. Like, like Kyland's sinking, and they're like, "Oh, this is the chink in his armor." Like, or the current went the other way during his route. Like,
which could happen. Like, in those
yeah.
If it's a river or it's an ocean, even a lake, if the wind is like strong that day and it's changing all over the place, like, you could get the wind at your back while you're swimming, or you could get the wind at your face.
And also, knowing Jordan, he probably had like the perfect wind conditions when he went, and then as soon as he finishes, it all goes sideways.
I mean, I don't think I think the current could have been against Jordan.
And he still would have won.
Still would have won the swimming challenge. The thing is, I don't think most people understand how to swim with life jackets on.
Yeah.
So I think Jordan is the only one that actually still stays true to his swimming technique with a life jacket on, which is why he still cuts through the water. Everybody else, and I don't even mind giving this away, because I still guarantee most challengers won't change this in their swimming and they will still suck. Okay? If this is the water and this is you, if the current is coming this way, or even if there's no current and you're swimming this way, if you stay as flat as possible, either the water's going to float over you. If you dip your head down just a little bit, it's going to cause the water to go over you. But if your head's out of the water and you're trying to swim with your head above the water, your chest is also above the water. So what is that going to cause? Every time the water hits you, it's causing this wave that's bouncing off your chest, which is essentially, in a life vest, going, every time you take a hard stroke forward, it's going to be like somebody's pulling you against the current rather than you slicing through the water.
Right.
So that, I've been literally telling people how to swim every time there's been a swimming challenge on the challenge, and they still just don't get it, because panic kicks over. It's like, I can't breathe. Let me put my head out of the water to catch my breath. And that also doesn't work, because your chest is still under the water. Your lungs aren't going to be able to expand. But if you're flat and you take that big breath when your head is coming on, your lungs are going to be able to expand, and then you exhale once you put your head under the water. But all these people holding their breath, fucking doing dumb shit. I don't even know what the hell Car's doing out there.
She's using her paddles.
Yeah. We call that the flipper.
The flippers. I'm sorry, the flippers.
The flipper stroke.
Hey, I like that stroke. I don't care what Rachel says about it. But
I mean, like, did Rachel win by that much on the swimming? Like, was she that great?
And she didn't even win. She lost to Tori.
I was confused because when it just going to talk back to Kyland and his swimming. I felt like they made a bigger deal on it like 2 weeks ago on the next time on the challenge than what they did when it actually happened. I mean, outside of Banana's little comment of being like, oh, finally something Kyland's not good at, I felt like it really wasn't highlighted, so it was just weird. But I guess that matches up with everything else this season.
But,
they give away, like, they shoot their wad on the previews, and then they don't actually go into it more on the season.
But, I sort of took it a different way. It's me having my stupid, like, read between the lines of why did they put this on here. And sometimes the reason is they just put something on there. But me reading that was more of like, oh, they're trying to, like, set up, like, Kyland, because Kyland's in the final. We know that. Like, all 4 guys that are left are in the final. Kyland's going to be one that ends up either being put into elimination or losing elimination due to something along these lines because of swimming. Or something, like, something's going to happen that shows another chink in the armor type of thing. And that's the only reason why they threw that in there. Because outside of that, there wasn't really that much, just, like, I never really thought that he was going in because he was part of the montage. He wasn't isolated like Derek was. So
they really telegraph now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I almost would have liked them to not say that Kyland has a weakness, and then, watch whatever weakness it possibly could be just play out and just be like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
that's brutal. You know what I mean?
Right. Let's say we didn't see the Jenny asthma thing in the beginning of the season, and we just see her throughout the season just being a beast. Just being a beast at everything that she does. And she gets to the final, and then you start seeing her gas out, very early on. And then, just all of us being, oh, she doesn't have her endurance. She doesn't have her inhaler, whatever. Then it's boom, that shock value.
I know, I get it, because, I had to take my inhaler all of War of the Worlds 1 and War of the Worlds 2, but that was never shown.
Yeah.
So the death that, ended up happening was because I didn't get to take my inhaler, and it was hot as fuck, and I didn't have water, but it was just man, why can't this guy breathe? It's I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah. But for this daily, there wasn't really nothing to it, but it's still something I would have wanted to do. I did pole vault. I did pole vault in high school. The free fall from there would have been exhilarating off of that truck. The swim, not so much. But I would have gone through it just to see if I could do it.
I saw when the truck, dropped. It's they almost swung away, and then swung back, stabilized, and then they would get dropped, and then their time would continue. Yeah. I almost felt like it would have been cooler where it's as the car drops, as they're swinging out, just hit the button that unlaunches them and just
let them go flying.
Yeah, let them do some somersaults before they hit the water.
I think an earlier version of the challenge would have done that.
Oh yeah,
and an earlier one would have, prior to Tony and Leroy almost dying, hitting the water the wrong way. But you can still technically do that, because let's be real, we're all a bunch of idiots here. Even if you're going down a pencil, someone's gonna go and just go sideways.
At this point in the game, there's no point in talking strategy because there is no strategy. But has there been any strategy this season?
Well, we had the brilliant strategy of Jenny this episode, who thought, because mainly Theo protecting Kara and Derek weeks ago, but for us months ago, means that I get an IOU.
That's the flashback you give us?
It was wild.
But flashback of Derek being good at this whole season?
Right. And but also just the idea of Jenny going to Derek being well, because of this thing that happened in episode 3 of the season, you should protect me over Michelle, who's your number 1 now that Olivia's gone, or Kara, who is your number 2 now that Michelle bucked up to number 1. Which also, we've never got any context for why Kara and Derek were close this entire season until this episode, that they are close.
And, you didn't really get, Michelle and Kara even got close, right?
Yeah.
But the only thing that we can infer from that is because Kara stood up for her when Laurel was doing whatever. But it's there's almost been no, if I were watching this and I didn't know where Kara lied in this alliance thing, I would have no idea where she lies. There's been no setup of who actually migrated to the one side, and why, and who's on the other side, and no, it was talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
We know it was
I feel
talked
we
about.
used to see that all the time. We'd see those. Just thinking back, World of the Worlds 2, they showed us the conversation that you had with Cam in the beginning of the season that set all that up. So these conversations are out there. Why are we not seeing any of them?
Well, because we needed 20 minutes of, and I don't mean this in a bad way to Derek, but we needed 20 minutes plus of him talking about how it was his, rest in peace, his sister's birthday that day. And so that they could then use him in a ad for a commercial break to be here's the hotline for people, which for all intents and purposes, good job for at least putting that stuff out there for people. But we don't need that to be a 25-minute segment of a 90-minute episode. That little things matter and the relationships matter, but they don't understand that in the production side of it, where this entire season, outside the ones that are just basically known, there's no way for us to truly understand, well, why did these things happen, like we said earlier in the podcast. And also, I think it's why you have a lot of people, there's a lot of, like, I wouldn't even say Kara hate, but, like, a lot of, like, downplaying Kara, the player, this season, of saying, like, she's not a good player this season, where I'm like, she clearly is. Like, she hasn't been targeted at all. And, like, and all these girls and the guys, there's plenty of reason for a lot of them to still go after her, even if she's not showing out. Because, like, All-Stars 4 did happen. Like, she was great in All-Stars 4 the entire time. You can have a bad season where you're not winning the dailies, but is she still so
one? Because then, God forbid, you tell them they suck this season.
Oh, we'll hear it on Twitter.
I had to throw in my OG for a second.
Yes, we needed that little dose. I was missing it these past few weeks. But like, Kara's obviously played a good social game. I think the game that she's played this season, they almost didn't want to show because it's against, like, what production thinks of Kara the player. Like, they're still thinking of Kara being the same person she was 4 to 5 years ago, when that just isn't the case.
Well, it's like, to your point with Derek, why is this episode the first time we're hearing about his sister? Like, this could have been something that was touched upon throughout the season, and why he's playing so hard. And then it could have led up to this moment of, like, it's my sister's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they could have hammered home the point even more. Like, I didn't know his sister at all. I didn't even know that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
At all until last night's episode.
Right.
I had no idea. He's never talked about it. Like, like in the times that we've hung out. Now, I'm sure if I was at the house, I would have heard it, like, if I was there longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I never knew about it. And I'm sitting here watching the season being like, Derek's obviously doing good. Why are we not seeing him?
Right.
We have a whole episode dedicated to Footgate. And none of this. And once again, like, you're not highlighting, the different layers of like, Kara's game, for instance. You're not showing, like, holy shit, her strategist and, like, protector and, like, daily winner goes home first episode. Is she going to get thrown into every elimination? Oh, wait, she's not getting thrown into every elimination, so she's not having to survive the way she normally would have to survive, and what she's known for is elimination. Ah, she didn't make the final. Elimination. Yay, she made the final, right? Does she not have a social game anymore? Like, she clearly has a social game. She has not been put in all season long since the first elimination.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. But you wouldn't see any of her social game anywhere, because outside of, well, I can't think of anywhere where people have come up to her, like, we see her have conversations, but there hasn't been one kind of origin story of how any of these relationships formed. You have so many that would be great, from Tori to Michelle to Derek, who last time we saw in All-Stars 4, she wasn't on the best terms with. Ryan, who she came in, like, all these people that where a lot of these had to start in this house, and we don't see a single one of those conversations the entire season.
And maybe a big part of that is also, unfortunately, the Laurel of it all. Because, like, there was a lot early in the game where a lot of it was intertwined with the Laurel of it all, and the players that were backing her and becoming friends with her, maybe in their confessionals, where all they were doing was bashing Laurel, and they're like, well, we can't have that, so we have to, like, get rid of all this. And then by that point, when Laurel leaves, we're already halfway through the season, and they're like, well, they'll know that she's good, and if they don't know, Carl will tell them, because, like, that's really the only other thing we get. It's like, oh, well, her and Tori will, like, do the crossplay, and they do the bit with Michelle last week.
Yeah, but
like,
outside
that,
once again, they do all that stuff, and that's great to show them interacting like that. But out of nowhere, it's like, oh, these two girls just decided to dress up like dudes and be cool together.
Yeah,
like,
especially
like, oh, they bonded over, dressing in drag, male drag. Like, what did they actually bond over? Why aren't we showing that?
Yes, and like what
is a turning point?
Right, and what I want,
good close friends with somebody because you dress up.
yeah,
You
and
know?
the thing that I wanted to know too, and I think would be the more fun story also is like going in. Most people would have thought of like the stronger women, Cara and Rachel would have like came together. Now, like we can read between the lines. Rachel is aligned with Bananas, so like for us, we get it. She's not gonna be cool with Cara during the season because Bananas isn't cool with Cara. But like going in, we would think as a typical viewer, like, oh, these are two very similar-minded people. They're gonna come together. They're all gonna butt heads with Tori still. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. It was almost the opposite. And they didn't tell us, like, what was this through line?
And, like, kind of ripped apart for, aligning with Jonny, but, also being praised because, she's the lone standing Air Oneer. And, it looks like she's all but punched her ticket to the final.
Well, one person who has punched her ticket to the final is Tori. For sure, because she's going to be the only one safe next week because she won this week's daily, unless she comes in last. Unless she comes in last.
No, I think it voids itself because she won this daily, so she was only safe from not being a target. So she still has to compete
right
in the next daily, and if she comes in last, there's a small. If I were a betting man, I wouldn't expect her to come in last because she has absolutely been smoking the competition.
Yes, she's won 4 of the 7 dailies of the individual format were won by Tori.
Absolutely dominant.
And I mean, she brought it up last night, but we've been talking about it for, I don't know.
Paulie brought it up on the first episode he joined the podcast.
Of being, that she's part of the Mount Rushmore. My only critique there is how does the challenge not know that there's only 4 faces on Mount Rushmore instead of 5, but we'll let it go. She's there.
But could we also say, just as a little side, just a little side comment too, Cara's the only picture on there where when they turned it to stone that still looked good.
Yeah.
They did not look great or flattering at all.
Not at all.
But also an interesting shot of what they considered their 4. Because therefore,
5 up there.
Well, they eventually put Tori up there.
Oh, okay.
But their 4 that they had on there was Cara, Laurel, Evelyn, and Emily. And I thought that was so fascinating that that's the ones that they went with. Obviously, you can't put certain people on there because of them being canceled or they weren't uncanceled yet prior to this season. So, like, you don't have an Ashley Mitchell up there. You didn't have Tori up there. You don't have Camilla up there. Coral, whatever. Like, all these other people. Paula,
I don't think Emily's Mount Rushmore.
Emily's dominant. Emily's dominant, but she has 1 win.
And she's only done 4 seasons. I mean, that's the even worse argument than Landon. I mean, at least Landon got 3, and we don't consider him there. Like, he did 4 seasons. Like, they've done the same amount of seasons.
But I'm glad that you brought that up, though, because it sort of goes back to, like, putting, like, a little pat on the back on Paulie there of, he mentioned it. He mentioned it early on.
This is number 2, and she's Mount Rushmore. If not already.
Right. I think you can make an argument, love her or hate her, that she is what she is, and it's a dominant player. Like, she still needs to get another win so that she's, like, because currently she has success, but only has the 1 win, so she's sort of like a Dirk. Because I love my basketball references on this podcast. Like, Dirk was always a winner, but he only truly won once.
She kind of deserves half a ring from World of the Worlds 2. I get it, we can't give it to her, but like
we can't.
She deserves half a ring for that one.
I would say up until, this season, obviously the season she won, she did great, but War of the Worlds 2 and this season stand out to me as her best seasons. Now, here's an argument as to why OG should just retire. Okay? Because here's the thing. If you just left Veronica where she was after Mean Girls, after getting 3 wins?
3 wins.
3 wins. Ultimate strategist. She was winning dailies. She was winning eliminations. there would be no argument that her face wouldn't be planted right there.
Yeah.
In Mount Rushmore. But because she didn't know when to hang it up, she's got come back, been horrible, one of the worst competitors and it has completely tarnished what her resume was. And we are starting to see it when we have the conversation about the male goats. We even had this back and forth when it came to the conversation regarding Darrell. He is tarnishing his resume, 4-time win guy, dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Easily probably would have been the name on the Mount Rushmore. It would have been Johnny, CT, Darrell, Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Because he wants to keep coming back and not making finals and not winning and losing eliminations and all this stuff, his name's starting to get a little bit tarnished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What I'm hearing here is that you're telling all the challenge fans, shut up. We don't want to see Evelyn back because you never know.
Evelyn's a unicorn.
Evelyn, I think, would be a unicorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, y'all need to know when to retire, guys. Because, here's the thing. Y'all ain't what you were 10 years ago. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's totally fine. Now, if you guys maybe took it serious, Rachel didn't come into this season fucking around.
Mm-hmm.
She is what we call in the mathematics world an outlier. She's an outlier.
Yeah.
Majority of you gone early. Injuries. Awful. Outlier, Rachel, still holding it down for all of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, listen, if y'all want to come back and buck up and fight and get in people's faces and fucking throw drinks and do whatever the fuck you used to do it. If y'all are recently divorced or recently single and want to come back, get your rocks off, do it. Come back. But if you're coming back a changed human, then you are no longer what made you entertaining back in the day. And if you can't win on top of it, you were also no longer what you were back in the day. So if you want to rest on those resumes, stay off. Or just go to the retirement home.
It just made me think of Brad Part 3.
Go and make All-Stars what All-Stars was meant to be, which was for the OGs that had that time in the sun. And that's what it was supposed to be. The nostalgia hit was essentially the pitch of the show, and they're not using it how it's meant to, and everyone knows, based off the reveal of the All-Stars 5 cast, it's not what it was advertised All-Stars to be.
But also, nostalgia was a big thing during the COVID years.
True.
Because everybody was, locked in. They were catching up on all their old favorite shows. A lot of people that were really popular, like bands from back in the day, shows from back in the day that were making these resurgence, right? Because you couldn't film anything new. So everybody fell in love with what already had existed. And it worked. But I can promise you, as COVID is gone, nostalgia is also gone. So, it's... And I'm not saying dead completely.
Yeah.
Sprinkle it in. Sprinkle it in where it's like...
Damn, we don't need half the cast to be...
So-and-so just came back. Yeah. One or two. Be like, oh my God, I can't believe so-and-so came back after all these years. I wonder how they're going to play with these people.
I also think it would be more advantageous for them to have less of them there.
That's what I was thinking for 5. It's just being people have wanted Frank, Devon, Shane to come back forever. The fact that you're putting 3 of them back all on the same season, that's going to lessen all of their value as to putting in just one of them back on a season. Look at Invasions. When Darrell did come back, it was
a huge deal.
He was the only one that was oh God, they got Darrell, and everyone else was okay. It's the Bananas, the CTs, the Caras. We're used to it, but having that one was a huge deal.
Well, yeah, you had all the champs, and then they're oh, well, we brought Ashley from San Diego back for some reason, and even Zach was more of an afterthought of the group. It was oh, we brought Zach, and I love Zach. Like, Zach's great, but like he was the afterthought because you had CT and then Bonanza, and then you have Darrell just coming back, and you're like, oh, they mean it when they said they wanted to bring champs here. They brought in,
and he was still a dog.
He was still a dog, and he was a bona fide Mount Rushmore guy when that happened. Mm-hmm. So like
Darrell invasion, Mount Rushmore.
Right. Yep. So like Dan, you hate him, but like imagine like you have that situation where like you don't bring a bunch of OGs, but then you just brought Landon back. The name Landon would have carried weight still.
Listen,
not for you. Not for you.
No, hang on. This isn't. I don't hate Landon. I hate Landon's fans. There's a big difference. I would be happy if Landon came back. I think that would be awesome. I get it's highly unlikely. I think it would be great if he would come back. I just wouldn't ever look at Twitter like after that was announced because, like I said, it's his fans. It's not him in particular.
Right. But like I think that's the way that it would work. Like you have your main group, the main era, the era that you're on right now, and then you have handfuls of the other eras to sprinkle in so that you still get a little bit of nostalgia hit, but there are people that are there to play the game and play it hard. That's what works. It's not, we have, like, I think that was the one issue about eras in general was, especially for the older ones, is we're coming back and it's almost like this day campish feel of, we just love each other so much and we need to protect each other. And it's like, no, I want you guys at each other's throats.
Here's the thing. You can't tell me that there's a single OG where in their prime, they would allow anybody 10 years older than them, let alone 20 years older than them, just re-enter the game and be like, yeah, we're cool with this. No shot. Those people in their heyday of savagery, nastiness, competitiveness would be like, yo, retire, grandma and grandpa. That would be them. So for them to sit here on their high horse, that they wouldn't be that way then, and almost be offended if anybody has any type of opinion about that, is the most insane entitlement I've ever seen in my life.
Well, like, when Laurel was bullying, like, Paula, and calling Paula, like, old and, like, wasted away, like, Paula was, I think, still in her late 20s. Like, late 20s, early 30s, and, like, it was essentially calling her a senior citizen. Like,
and so, now Laurel will sit there and be like, oh, geez. It's like,
oh, geez.
Shut up.
Which, like I said, I still think
ass up.
It's one of I brought it up several times on the podcast. It's still one of my favorite. I think it was Inferno 3 was Timmy. He's retired because he's like, I'm 34. It's just time to do other things. Like the fact that like at that point he's retiring and everyone was just like, yeah, he's so old. And we are where we are.
You're like, oh.
Listen, and honestly, if I were the challenge gods, I would put this argument to rest. Okay? Which they could do. All of the old people, put them on All-Stars. Make it easier. Carnival games, a party, all of that shit.
Yeah.
And then take the group of people who still want to do the crazy shit and go at each other's necks and argue and hook up and fight and compete and do all that stuff. Put them on a season. And then just like let the seasons air. And see which one gets more attention. Which one has more people talking about it.
And make them both on platforms that are accessible to everybody. That's the other issue, too.
Air them at the same time. Film them separately.
Yeah.
And then air them at the same time. Just air them at the same time. See what everybody talks about. See which things people talk about. They're going to talk about old people drinking wine and chilling and then like going and doing like a beanbag toss somewhere? Or are they going to talk about, people almost murdering each other?
I'd just be there for Handjob Steve, but other than that, I wouldn't enjoy it.
Listen, Handjob Steve, he could be the one that crosses over.
There we go. There we go. Now we're talking.
Every season needs a Handjob Steve.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then to conclude this podcast for this episode, we now know the 4 guys that are going into the final. Well, we don't know, but we know.
We know.
So
4 guys left.
Bringing it back to my favorite basketball. I have something for all 4 people. I want to hear what you guys think of it. So Jordan, for modern basketball, modern right now, he's the Celtics. He's the Celtics. It's just like you put them as the fan favorite to win. They're gonna be in first place or second place, but come the playoffs, they're going to cook. Derek.
I think that's insulting to Jordan, not the Celtics.
Well. There's not much better teams. I'm not going to call them the Grizzlies, Dan.
No, if anything, Jordan would have been like a few years ago, like the Warriors dynasty. Like,
well, yes, but I'm talking modern. I'm talking modern right now. This season.
Modern right now, because I was going to say he's got to be Bulls.
Bulls, yeah.
Era.
He's 96 Bulls for sure, but. Okay, we can even do that. That's fine. That's fine. He's Jordan.
If he wins, he's the 96 Bulls. Because
yes.
71.
Yeah, the 70 win Bulls. This is Jordan right now. That's him. You have Derek. I think Derek is pretty much the last 5 years of the Miami Heat. Like, they are good. They start off slow, sort of like his edit, but come the playoffs, a lot of people are like, well, we don't really want to be matched up against them. Like, there's so many teams that are like, I don't want to be matched up against the Bulls. Or not the Bulls, the Heat. Bananas is the Lakers. The name value of Bananas is like, you have the titles.
They're not winning.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone will say, oh, they're going to win, though. Does not matter what has happened. Does not, in the offseason, during the season, they're winning. And then when they don't win, well, it was rigged anyway.
Yeah.
Then for Kyland is the Pacers. They're good. They're good during the regular season. Like, they win their games. We don't know what they're going to do in the playoffs.
We don't know if they'll make the playoffs or not. They just happen to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Or like, you could even say, like, a current day, like the Hawks the last couple years. Like, they make the play-in, they're like, oh, maybe they're going to do something, and then they lose and flame out. It's like, we don't know yet with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is his first final. And he is on a season where Justin Booth is the showrunner. So, my first final, everybody let me know, not a real challenge final. When I witnessed what a real challenge final was like, I now understood why people said Final Reckoning was not a real challenge final. So the fact that Kyland's first final is going to be a Justin Booth final, that's
daunting.
Very daunting. Very daunting. Like, now that I've gotten a Justin Booth final under my belts, I now know what to expect, and even then I wouldn't really know what to expect.
Right. Just pain. Like, I actually loved the bit of all, like, Jordan and Bananas and Cory just, like, rizzing and, like, grilling Kyland so hard about what a final's gonna be like. Because Kyland just wants to be happy. He's like, I made the final. This is great. I'm so happy about this opportunity. Like, you're gonna hate yourself. You're gonna wish you died during, like, 5 minutes of this
they were
final.
playing mind games.
You have to. You have to. But Dan, any thoughts on the 4, like the picks? I'm sorry I didn't mention your Grizzlies at all, but
I don't want my Grizzlies mentioned. No, I'd say if anything with Kyland, I think you could also say that you make the comparison to either, we'll say OKC, is that everyone seems to have all this upside on him now, thinking that Kyland's going to be a great player in the future. He might, but he might not. It's the same thing with, like OKC. They could be a great team. We don't know that for sure. You got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, mid-market team. Got the youth on him. He's not as youthful.
Like OKC when they had, like, Durant and everything. Or, was it Durant?
Yeah, Durant, Westbrook.
Yeah. Was Durant, Ibaka, Westbrook,
like,
yeah.
You're looking at him and you're like, they should win. They should kind of give the, a run for everybody's money, like, in terms of, like, being able to win multiple. Never really happened.
Well, and then see, you can add to it there is, Alex, is you could say, you know, we just lost Cory, and Cory's like the modern day Cavs that choke in the playoffs every year.
You're right. You're right. See, we're bringing it all together now. And you know what? Cory can't even be mad. We're comparing him to a basketball team. He should be thrilled. He should be thrilled while he's building this new house. Like, he's doing good. He's doing good for himself. Like,
he's got that teen mom money. Cory's doing just fine.
Yeah, it's just like, Cory, if you see this, just pretend Josh said it, and then you can be mad at Josh again.
Here's the thing. Cory's best time to win would have been pre-teen mom, money. You know what I mean? Because now it's going to kind of have like the McGregor effect. You know what I mean?
I have the money already.
Yeah, like McGregor's so rich, like he'll perform all right now, but he's not gonna be what he once was when he was the double champ.
I don't know how hungry you can be for just the title. Like, because he's like, I won't stop coming back until I'm called a champion. And I'm like, okay, respect.
Well, the reason why it's hard for me to believe that he's hungry for just the title is because he gets praise for being like the best to never win. Mm-hmm. And like he gets praised for everybody wanting to see him win. I'm just speaking from my own personal aspect of things. We come from two different loss categories, right? Mm-hmm. Like people don't want to see me win. Although I feel like maybe that's changing a little bit, right? When I lose, people fucking shit all over me, right? Mm-hmm. You put me and Cory in a final together with each other, he's not beating me because he's like a lion in captivity. He gets his meals, he gets to like run around and play. He doesn't have to worry about venomous snakes killing him or hyenas attacking his pride and all that stuff. He doesn't have to worry about a crocodile coming up and getting him while he's having a drink of water. I'm like a lion in the wilds, all right? I've got scars all over me. I'm going to want it more if we're both in that final together. And that's just my honest opinion of it. Like,
yeah,
I'm not trying to fucking blow smoke or anything, but, and like, listen, we both live comfortable lives. However,
you're not getting that team mom money.
Our version of living comfortable lives are a little bit different, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm building he's building a great online presence. Love it. It is easier when you're getting a nifty paycheck from Teen Mom all the time. I've built my shit from nothing into something. There's a different mentality there.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I agree wholeheartedly. It's just like, look, I just think his priorities are never actually in the right place because of what he, like, fixates on. Because he's like, I can be 4-0 in elimination. Like, cool. But you know what else you could be? 3-1. And you know what the number that only matters in that situation? The 1.
The 1.
It does not matter that you won 3.
Like he needs to start thinking long term because his mindset shouldn't be, I could be 4-0. His mindset should be, I didn't see a fucking elimination this season. Like on USA 2, he didn't see an elimination. I thought that was his smartest played game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Like, he's shown that he's able to do it.
Yeah. And if Chris wasn't there, maybe he takes first place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and you can make the same case for a couple of the other seasons that he did do a better job of, like, staying out of more eliminations. Like, Spies, Lies, and Allies, he loses just because it's CT. And,
speaking with Cory, I think, it could have been my favorite part of the episode is I just want to shout out Cheyenne of just being like, you don't want to stay there for a month and a half and go home now, do you? He'd be
I thought you would already be home.
Yeah, he'd be a loser. So shout out Cheyenne. That was my favorite part of the episode.
Dude, Cheyenne just keeping it real. That was hilarious.
Yeah, you have Nelson giving motivational speeches and Cheyenne just calling you a loser. You really get the best of both worlds here.
Oh, man. That's freaking great, dude. It's freaking great.
Okay, Dan, bring us home.
I think that's going to wrap it up for us. Any final thoughts, Paulie, Alex?
Well, apparently there's an episode next week. I was told there wasn't. Now I'm being told that there is. But regardless, if there's an episode next week, we'll be here. If there's not an episode next week, We'll see you in the new year, because they're not going to do it on Christmas or on New Year's Day.
For everybody's sake, they should do an episode next week.
Yes.
Yeah. Get an episode next week. We don't need this going till February.
That's the path that we're on. I did look it up at the beginning of the episode. For as much, you brought it up last week, Paulie, we were talking about ahead. We are really skating dangerously into surpassing the Final Reckoning episode total. Like, I think it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point that we're going to. So we just need to wrap this up.
I would have thought that a season that started airing in August would have been done by November.
Yeah, dude, do what Cory was not able to do and wrap it up, folks.
Wrap it up. Yeah, that's going to do it for us this week. We will see y'all next week. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like the bell, hit subscribe. That way you get notified every time we go live. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get the podcasts at, please take a second, rate and review us 5 stars. It helps us out tremendously. And as always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron at realitypatron.com. Sign up for a month, give it a try. If not, Fairplay will give you your money back. That'll do it for us, and we'll see y'all next week.